Hello, welcome everyone to today's podcast, The Engineer Whisperer. And this is on transition into a director role. And today, my guest is Randy. Randy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Andre. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's super cool to have somebody from my area on the podcast. I mean, I know your picture is in San Francisco, but folks, he is in the Seattle area.
Yes.
So, super cool. Well, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, let's see where to start. Been in the technology industry a little over 20 years. Done a bunch of different things, mostly around infrastructure, identity access management, cybersecurity. Lived in the Seattle area most of my life, so I really enjoy the Pacific Northwest. And I guess one fun fact about me is I've been studying Ki Aikido, which is a Japanese martial art, also for almost 20 years, and hold my second degree black belt. So when things get too stressful in the office, then I can go on the mat and throw people around.
Well, I'm sure you also learned some coping strategies how to
Definitely.
relax and deal with people. Well, maybe we'll weave that in there today. I don't know. Well, so let's start with tell me how you found your director role. Were you invited into, or was it always part of your career plan?
Um, Overall, I would say it was definitely part of the career plan. So from early on within the technology industry, been interested in leading teams and management. So have done a number of different management roles through the years. Um, my specific director role, I had contacted someone who I worked with early in my career at Microsoft and saw that they were hiring for a director position in a large insurance company. Um, so I'd reached out when he had posted the job on LinkedIn and had a conversation with him. And the skill sets that he was looking for the team that he was growing matched very well with what I was doing. So I went over and helped him with that, and that was quite an experience. Um,
Well, well, let's talk about it.
sure.
When you say quite an experience, what do you mean?
Um, Overall, the moving into the insurance industry from uh, having done more technology companies was definitely a shift. Being in an IT or cybersecurity team as part of a retail business, right? So the core workings of the company are not the technology itself, is definitely a different approach. So the conversations with the business, the motivations and coming to a decision of making action was different than I had been used to, um, as well as the specific company we were in. The senior leadership had made decisions that they needed to um, do some updates to their infrastructure. The nice way to put it is the rest of the staff was maybe not quite ready to do the changes that they were looking for. So one of the things I, excuse me, was brought in to do was to drive forward some of the IT security initiatives, not only within the IT team itself, but within a lot of the business teams. Um, so there's, I guess, one of the big realizations when I got there is working with my other director peers and others with director titles. Um, doesn't necessarily mean that they're any more or less invested in changing and moving forward. So although we were tasked with leading the organization to towards the goals that our senior leadership had set, um, just having the title doesn't mean they were bought in. So a
Yeah.
lot of the conversations I had were around, why is this a good thing for the company? Why are we spending time on this? It's not the primary job that my employees are supposed to be doing. So I spent a lot of time talking about the concepts of security is everybody's job in this day and age, right? There's a lot of things that can happen just because folks are in the system and they have permissions to certain data sets. If they
Yeah.
don't understand the security aspects, there can be drastic consequences for them clicking on things that they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So
So,
although
so
it may,
wait, Randy, was that part
sure,
of your job description, or you're saying that that is what it morphed your job in your role into because people were asking and most like the demand was there for that versus for what you got hired them.
I would say a little bit of both. So
Okay.
we knew that the role would be working with the different parts of the business to help them understand the IT initiatives.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I didn't realize before going into it exactly what that meant. Right. And I think being able to explain to folks whose primary focus is on the business and not the technology, helping to bridge that gap on how the technology can help them with their business
Yeah.
rather than just be a distraction.
Yeah, engineering leaders run into that a lot. So I
Yes.
wanted to bring you on for us to talk about that. So I'm curious, was there anything easy about this transition and about that experience? Let's start with the easy first before we go into the challenging one.
Overall, I think the thing that was nice about it is being able to go into the conversations with that title. Definitely gave me a seat at the table, and people listened a little bit more to what I had to say,
Mhm.
rather than, I had been involved in those conversations in other companies without the title. And even though I had the experience and the understanding of what was happening, um, the the way the interactions start, specifically first time when you're meeting folks or in larger settings, the title definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm happy that you say that and that you leaned into it, you understood, and then leveraged it. Now,
Yes.
what was challenging about it?
At the same time, with myself having the title and understanding my level of experience and depth of knowledge, um, I probably had higher expectations of my peers at the same level. Um, so specifically when we talk about the technology itself and how solutions are rolled out within an enterprise, I've had a significant amount of experience in, large enterprises around the world, and understanding, well, now understanding that just because other people are at the director level doesn't mean that they've had those experiences, and being more aware, especially when building relationships with peers, of spending some time to dig in to understand what their path has been, what their um, focus and depth of experience is, and validating assumptions before just expecting that they have done this or that just because of their title.
I see. So it sounds like you were building or trying to build allyship with the other directors, same level
Yes, very much so.
directors, and then in order to do that, had to kind of figure out where they are and
Right.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, and part of it was coming into a bit of an existing team that had existed for a while, and we were trying to pivot and get some different stuff done. Um, and I would say that's, excuse me, where I ran into some of the challenges with not doing what I just described, and understanding where people came from, because what we were being asked to do made a whole lot of sense to me. And I initially got confused and why it didn't make sense to everybody else. But quickly learned that we needed to go through some of the why and how of what we were doing, what the expected benefits to the business were, and why we were the team being asked to lead it. Because some of those things were not as clear to my peers as they were to me.
So what an interesting environment and situation. So I'm curious when like a newcomer like you, even at the director
Mhm.
level, who joins an existing team, which that happens all the time in business, somebody joins an existing team. When you say that we all needed to get a refresh on the why,
Mhm.
like practically who did that? Who on the team? Was it, you who came on? Was it or somebody already on the team? Was it the leader of the team? So
So overall, the team had gone through a significant amount of, or the company as a whole had gone through a significant amount of change in the previous couple of years, including a new CEO, new CIO, on the second CISO. So there had been a significant amount of change. There were a lot of conversations on things that needed to happen, um, because there were some short tenured changes of some of those senior leadership. Some of the initiatives that were originally talked about lost steam. So part of it was people were trying to understand, okay, is this something we're actually going to do? Is this going to be the mantra for 2 months, and then when somebody else new is going to come in? So when I arrived, the CISO had been there about, I believe, 9 months or so. So I had a very good idea of the things that he wanted the team to accomplish.
mhm.
Um, so I came on to help drive a couple of those initiatives and make some traction on some things that had, um, how do we nicely say, been going slow for a little while.
I see. So then when you came on, it sounds like almost you took on the role of reminding people of why you're there, why you were
Right.
hired, and
Yeah, it was
saying this
definitely
is
expanding the reach of
yeah,
cybersecurity,
yeah,
definitely through the rest of the IT organization,
yeah.
um, trying to tighten up some of the controls and the things we were looking at day to day,
Hmm.
and then putting together a communication plan to actually go out to the rest of the business, outside of the walls of just IT.
So I'm curious, what was challenging about this mindset shift where the surprise is there. I can hear it. I've been in situations like that. You come in, you're new, you're excited, you want to make a difference, you want to make an impact, you want a team to work with. You were told there's a team to work with, and then you come in and it's like, oh, okay, this is
What's the saying? An object at rest tends to stay at rest. Um, so overall, I would say the overwhelming feeling in the organization was comfort. This is the way they'd been doing things for a very long time. So it has to be a pretty significant understanding before investing the time and energy to change the way we do things. And that's where I came to the realization is just because people are at a certain level doesn't mean that they understand or are interested in the change that would probably be best for the organization. So there's a certain level of conversation and uh, I guess providing motivation and understanding for folks, on why leadership believes these changes need to take place, what is our role in facilitating those changes,
Mhm.
and then what is the benefits for our employees and our teams, and thereby for the company as a whole to go through these efforts.
Was that in your skill sets to facilitate and to how to say to
It was a strength I was working on building. Um, it's it was definitely a different, um I guess a different part of the conversation than I had led before myself. Most of the other organizations I had been in, there was, I guess I wouldn't necessarily say more of a culture of change, but I was not as much the direct provider of the motivation as I was in this role. So it definitely was a different experience for me.
So what
Great learning experience.
yeah, yeah, I can hear it. So what mindset shift you had to adopt in order to even try to make the situation succeed? Because knowing you and I can hear it in your voice, like you wanted it to succeed.
Right.
You learned, you stretched new skills. But what was the mindset that, it's
The
the
biggest
opposite
thing
of
for
giving up?
me, right, the biggest thing for me was to let go of my motivation and how excited I was about it, and really work with the rest of the team to understand what are the things that they cared about and what are the things that would motivate them to want to be part of the change and the solution. Um, and a couple different individuals, there were things that they looked at things significantly differently than I did. So it took me a little bit of work to sit down with them and try to understand where they were coming from, trying to understand what their resistance was. Um, Through spending some of that time, that I definitely got a better understanding of some of the other pressures that the business dealt with, that were different than other roles and other organizations that I'd been part of. And it gave me I would say, a more holistic view of the business, of an organization that has been relatively static for a number of decades, and now in the last couple of years had gone through some significant changes. So dealing with a lot of, quite frankly, fear, of stability of the organization, of, well, this is just going to be another flash in the pan, and I'm going to go learn how to do this, and then in a month and a half, I'm going to have to go learn and do something else. So I'll just wait the 6 weeks and push it off, and then just go do the next thing. Um, so
Yeah.
working through some of those conversations with folks on why it's different this time, why this is the the path forward, um, and helping them understand, dissect some of the communication that had come down from leadership in the previous 18 months, um, showing them the things that I saw that were different, the additional alignment we had through multiple layers of leadership, where some of the other initiatives may have been only one layer of leadership that was saying something, and people were
Yeah.
kind of following that. But at
Yeah.
this point, we had, some very strong alignment with three levels of leadership all the way up through the CEO, that this was going to be a long-term investment for the company. Um, so it's in a more strictly technology company. I think people have a little bit different mindset of, right, that the technology is going to change and evolve. That's part of what we're focused on.
Yes.
Um, but in a non-technology company where a lot of the business is focused on delivering X product or service, um, the understanding that those things are going to change and evolve is, um, I'll say, not as well known, not as much in the forefront of people's mind, right? And a lot of folks, because they're not as familiar with the technology, it's more of a detractor or a sense of worry and confusion, rather
Yes.
than, oh no, it's exciting, we get to do all this new stuff in the cloud. Well, what's the cloud? Why are we doing this? It doesn't seem like it works as well,
Yeah.
right?
What's wrong
And
with the one that we have? And
right.
yeah.
Yeah, we
So
figured out how to do it 30 years ago, and we're still doing it that way. Why are you trying to change it now?
exactly. Exactly. Well, you bring up a very interesting point, and I think that a lot of leaders, and especially in tech, as you're saying, engineering leaders are struggling with once they reach a director level or VP level is is that mindset from the folks, from the individual contributors, that because there's not a lot of communication around what technology does and how it works and how it evolves,
Right.
aka it will change. That folks are becoming folks become very comfortable of, well, it's not my job, it's the tech department, it's the tech
Right.
people, and they'll figure it out, and then they'll figure it out, and then I don't have a role in it, I don't have an impact. It might, I don't know, impact me a little bit, but I don't need to know it all. So again, that mindset creates that siloing between the tech team, including the leader, and then the other business units. And
Very much so.
I hear that clash, yes, often. Um, so, bringing it back to one of the solutions is to talk more about the technology, to educate folks on a regular basis, not
Yeah.
just one meeting and that's it, but build it into the knowledge base of those who are not part of the tech team. That's what I'm hearing on your end as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges is in a lot of organizations is the way they try to solve that, right? Is the yearly IT or security training that they have people go through,
Yes.
right? And it turns into a checkbox exercise, which we all know that the long term that those are not successful.
No.
So along what you were saying, making it part of the normal conversation of, right, every
Yes.
time we come together as an organization, we spend X amount of time talking about IT and security,
Yes.
things that are happening in the company. Doesn't always mean they're bad. Sometimes, oh, here's the bad update from security. But
Exactly.
it's the things that we're able to do, the insights that we're able to gather, and then an ask of the help we need from all of the organization. Because a lot of times, right, it's just that, oh, this isn't my job. I'm just gonna not say anything about this, even though I may be the one who clicked on something and I probably should have told somebody that I clicked on that. Right. And a lot of it from the security side is just being able to get that information, having those relationships of, everybody makes mistakes. Not everybody can know everything, but as a collective, we can get closer to
Yes.
being able to cover all those bases if we just communicate more.
Yes. Yes. Well, Randy, was there something that surprised you in this experience, in this transition? Anything?
Overall, I would say there was a point um, where a few of us on the leadership team had come together to have a conversation about some things that were not going well. And I was surprised that folks were more interested in keeping appearance than actually talking about what the real issue was. Um, and that um, sometimes people got lost in the messaging and either the way or the individual words that were chosen to express an idea rather than being able to boil it down to the essence of where the conversation was trying to go. And I guess for me, that was one thing that at a leadership level that I expected to be able to have a little bit more frank conversation. And I'll just say that didn't work out well. So it is a learning
No.
experience for me. And again, I think that's another um, technology industry thing, right? Maybe pushing a little harder, maybe being a little uh, less polished with communications and words. Um, and that's not as uh, widely accepted in other more traditional businesses.
Mm, okay, yes. What I'm also hearing is it's also there's something around trust and honesty, transparency. that
Yeah.
we can, I mean, because you said talk frankly. So in order to talk frankly, I need to trust you. There has to be some kind of a level of trust in the room,
Yes.
um, in the
And
environment.
in trying to deal with, right, I mean, just to set the scene, it was a group of the cybersecurity leadership talking about the fact that we were not delivering on what the CISO had asked us to do. He had been looking for us to get to some deliverables for
Mhm,
almost 6 weeks,
mhm,
and we hadn't gotten there yet. And started talking specifically about some of those tasks, and people were more interested in getting offended that they were the first one to be talked about than the fact that we as a collective were missing the deliverables.
yeah, they're looking
Um,
for the solution together.
yes, and to say um, my response to that was not great, and it was a good learning experience for me, right? Because I had
What did you learn? Tell us more. I know as much as you can. What was your learning?
that the way I express my emotions and frustration can sometimes be a detractor to the conversation. And as much as my passion pours out in certain ways, it doesn't always land. Uh, and being more cognizant in the moment of when it's not landing to try and step back and reframe the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was hoping that by pushing that it would just emphasize the point, but instead of emphasizing the point, it pushed some of the individuals further away.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was spent quite a while with that one, trying to figure out within myself how I can deal with that better, how I can manage my emotions and passion better in the moment. Um, and back to your point, I overplayed the amount of trust I had in the room, and people felt that I was attacking them rather than attacking the problem. Um,
Yeah.
and so that was an eye opener for me in trying to find better and more complete ways of showing that all I want is for us as a team and an organization to be successful. And that means we need to help each other. Right? We all come in with different sets of skills and um, things that we need help with, and only by supporting each other and giving the best of ourselves can we all get there together. And again, the basis of doing that as a collective is trust, because I have to trust you enough to let you know where the places that I need help with and
Yeah.
the things that I don't do as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and if I let those areas of myself and that vulnerability cloud my ability to see that you're trying to help, then the conversation can unravel quite quickly.
You said it so nicely, and first I want to acknowledge your vulnerability right now of sharing this, because even though I believe we all experience these moments when our passion blinds us, I call it,
Yes.
um, we don't talk about it. So thank you for speaking up today and sharing it. I think that a lot of our audience gonna relate to your experience.
Well, and I think that's one of the meta messages of this learning experience for me is for a lot of the organization that psychological safety was a huge concern and problem, right? With for an organization that had gone through a lot of changes, there are people, that had literally been at the company for 30 years, but were now concerned, are they going to have a job because things are changing so much? So I think, one of the most important things for us as leaders is how can we help instill that psychological safety in our teams and really unleash and unlock their ability to do the great work that they can do because they're not focused on being worried about, do I actually have a job, or am I going to, you know, expose one of my vulnerabilities and then get fired because of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that safety at all levels.
Correct.
I think that we are sometimes biased and we think that it's for the individual contributors to have that safety. But you're sharing at the director level and it applies to the VP level, it applies to the executive level. That safety, that environment where we trust each other is important at every level.
And I guess that's a better way of describing what I was trying to say, and things that surprised me about my peer set at that director level is that rather than leading with trust and support of each other, there was still that leading with the fear and, somebody's come in and disrupt the apple cart,
Yeah.
right? Change the status quo rather than, oh, they're bringing, our leaders are bringing somebody else in to help add to this. They're not trying to come take our job. So finding ways to help even with our peers and our leaders to support them in that psychological safety.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't that interesting how the signs are there? Just we have to learn to read the sign, to notice them within your organization and have those people who tell you the signs if you don't see them. But again,
Yeah,
requires trust. So
right.
well, I am so impressed and inspired by your level of emotional intelligence as you're speaking about it. So I can hear that you've done the work, that you
I
you
appreciate that.
you know you went back and like, okay, I want to understand this, and maybe a little bit of I don't want to be in this situation again or such a situation again. So kudos to you. Uh, no, that says a lot about your leadership, and I want to recognize you for that. And want our audience to be inspired too, that
Yeah,
you can learn too. You can move out of feeling stuck, of feeling misunderstood, of feeling almost like in this kind of not trusted situation, that
right.
you can still rebuild it, but it starts with rebuilding your own skills and your understanding um, of your leadership.
Well, and I think really at all leaders, right? All levels, sorry, it is that leading with that vulnerability, being the first one in the room to say, you know what, I don't know, I'm not familiar with that. I don't have the experience at that. Here's things I do have experience with that are related that maybe can help us in this conversation. But is there somebody in the room that does have more experience with this part of the conversation, and really being the one to open up the um, mindset of whatever team or group you're in, that it's okay to admit that some of us don't have experience in certain things because there's things that we do have experience in that others don't.
Yes.
And really leaning on that, the sum of the parts is more of the whole, or mix that one up, but the whole is more than just the sum of the parts, right? And
Yes. Yes.
the team together can go further by
Yes.
relying on the specific qualities that each one has, rather than each of us trying to do it all on our own.
Yes, and we can only move into that state of mind when we push through the fear, some parts of it. As long as we are in the fear, it's going to be about me. It's going to be about protecting myself. I will
Yeah,
not be vulnerable with anybody else because I'm afraid of what you're going to do to me because
right.
I don't have the psychological safety. So, yeah, it all connects. I love
Yes.
it. I love it how we went through the example and the experience that you had, because I I see it so logical, and that's why I love working with
Yeah.
engineers. it makes sense to me because the parts is like a puzzle. You just need to put them
Yeah,
all together. The fear, the safety, the trust, the vulnerability, the teamwork, the collaboration, and then the tech,
yeah.
innovation, right? And change. You put it all together and they all connect, all interact. It's so beautiful. Well, Randy, well, one, thank you very much. Thanks for sharing. And as we're getting closer to our end here, is there a transition that you're going through right now? And would you like to share a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so currently I am looking for my next role. Kind of focused on director level role. Most of my experience is within cybersecurity and infrastructure. So looking for a team that I can again help join, bring some more of that open conversation, how we work better together, helping increase and push forward that psychological safety for the organization as a whole, and really leveraging all of the resources that the organization has. I really love building and growing teams, and helping them get more efficient. So on the lookout for something that will allow me to do all those things together.
So this was a very useful transition. I mean, your previous, the one when we talked about, because you,
Yes.
even though it was hard and difficult and challenging, you
Yes.
learned a lot, and now you're
Yeah.
ready to use everything that you learned, and then the more that you discovered on
Yes.
your own to now, do it again, do it at a different level. So I
Yep.
applaud you for that as well. That is super cool. That is why experiences are so important.
Yep.
Experiences that we learn from.
Yes. And
Um,
we can learn from all of our experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
when we have the mindset, right?
Yes.
When we have the
Definitely.
mindset, we're not stuck in the fear. When we
Yep.
also trust ourselves that we can. And that is what you projected here today. Well, on that note, Brendan, let me give you back the mic. So you close us out. What would you like to leave us with?
The big thing for me going forward and trying to carry through all my experiences is assume positive intent, right? Everybody comes in every day trying to do a good job. Some days we're not at our best, and we need those around us to help us get back to our best. Rather than seeing folks as coming in and trying to move us away from what the goal is, understand what might be detracting them and how we can bring them back in, right? Really relating back to that psychological safety and how we can just support each other. um, you know Occasionally the answer is, maybe that piece no longer fits in the puzzle, but I think more often than not it's just, somebody's going through some other things possibly outside of the interaction that we're having that is taking them away from being able to focus on where we're trying to go. So give them grace to go through that, maybe help distract them from what else is going on and give them a piece of what we're doing. But understand it, I think at the end of the day, we're all just trying to do our best and get through the best we know how. And we all have different levels of experience and skill set. So the more that we can help and lean on each other, I think we'll all be happier and get further in this life.
Assume positive intent. I love it. Well, Randy, thank you very much for being here today. I really appreciate you sharing all this vulnerability and your experience with us,
Thank
making
you so much for
us,
the opportunity.
yeah, making us being inspired to work with tech people and to find out more about them. That is my goal, my intention here.
The security guys aren't just trying to make your life harder. We are trying to
Yes,
make
yes,
things better.
yes. So go. You met Randy now. So if you're listening and you have a security team and you haven't spoken with them, go find one person and connect with them on a human level with assuming positive intent. So there, Randy,
Yes.
thank you again.
Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.